low 200 miles south of Iceland, 960, drifting slowly east and filling. Low 250 miles northeast of the Faroes, 956, moving steadily north and deepening 940 by 1800 Sunday. High Trafalgar, 1033, slow moving with little change. The area forecast for the next 24 hours, Viking north and south Utsira 40s. Southwesterly, veering northwesterly, 6 to gale 8, perhaps severe gale 9 later. Rain, then wintry showers, moderate or cold.
One of the earliest memories I have of my father is listening to the shipping forecast in his company. It is in the kitchen of my family's home in Plymouth, which incidentally is one of the areas mentioned in the Maritime Weather Report 4 times a day, twice on FM, early in the morning and late at night. If you are unfamiliar with the shipping forecast, it is an overview of coastal weather, winds and tides. It is produced by the Met Office and used by sailors. It is a system of numbers, descriptions and places that explain what the sea is going to do. It is a rule book for a game. There is risk and reward of being at sea, and the shipping forecast is a guide to what you should and shouldn't do as you float on dark waters. If you do not know the rules to the game, which you probably don't, it will wash over you like a hypnotic spell, much like singing songs in a language you don't understand. Viking, Dogger, Rockall, Marlin, Fisher, Sol. The names are evocative, throwing up pictures of animals, rocks, winds, ghosts. Low, 200 miles south of Iceland, 960, drifting east and filling. Low, 250 miles northeast of the Faroes, 956, moving steadily north and deepening, 940 by 88 Sunday. This memory of my father is with a dark sky through a kitchen window. Picture the scene. A kitchen before sunrise. A man chopping apples to tip into a pan of porridge, bubbling on the stove. A boy sat at the table, listening to a woman read spells on the radio. Each word on its own is comprehensible. Moderate becoming good, from Land's End to Holyhead, decreasing, clearing, southwesterly, veering westerly. But take it together and it slips through your fingers. After the shipping forecast, conversations on the radio carry on as normal. The news, comforting in how it makes sense of the world. But the shipping forecast seems to come from somewhere else, somewhere before sense, a place between sleep and waking. From the Wash to Land's End, wind southwesterly 7 or gale 8. Juan Munoz, an artist I admire, made a piece inspired by the shipping forecast. It's called A Man in a Room Gambling, and is a collaboration with the composer Gavin Bryars. In it, they describe a game of card tricks. Each sentence makes sense, but the whole is impossible to follow. Here's what Bryars said about it. For our project, Juan wrote 10 texts, each one describing the manipulation of playing cards, dealing with the bottom of the pack, avoiding failure in the 3-card trick, how to palm a card, and so on. We decided that each would last exactly 5 minutes and would be designed to be placed before the last radio news of the evening, so that the programme, in Britain at least, would be experienced like our encounters with the shipping forecast. For his part, Juan imagined the listener driving along a motorway at night, being bemused by this fleeting and perhaps enigmatic curiosity, in fact, precisely the way in which most listeners encounter the shipping forecast.
Good evening, good night. Once again, we present A Man in a Room Gambling.
A man in a room gambling.
We will start today's program, if we may, with an apology. We have lost today's program somewhere, in some little memory pocket, or rather we have lost the text that we intended to read, but anyway, seeing that we promised it earlier, we are going to explain the game that the courts and the police have really got it in for, the one known as the 3-card trick, or sometimes also as the Mexican roll.
Mexican 3-carder.
Basically, the trick is just a card switch that everyone has seen at some time on their own town central street.
The 3-card trick.
Using a folding table or a cardboard box covered with a cloth, the performer shows the faces of 3 cards and slowly lays them down in a row.
Like the shipping forecast, a man in a room gambling sounds like the explanation of an obtuse, complex game. There are instructions to follow, absorbing in their precision. They are in fact based on the writings of a Canadian card shark, who wrote what many consider the definitive guide to manipulating cards. Like a card trick, you can follow the movement of the dealer's hands, but there are misdirections, sleights of hand, which make it impossible to fully grip what is happening. It is a game with and without rules. I have listened to the recording many times trying to follow the trick Munoz describes, because what good is a game if you don't know how to play it? What is a game if you don't know the rules? It is impossible to follow what Juan Munoz is doing, but I still grasp. Like the shipping forecast, I still try to understand, even though I'm missing information. I try to grasp, but it slips out of my hands. The roots of the shipping forecast come from disaster. In 1859, the steam clipper Royal Charter was wrecked off the coast of Anglesey, killing 450 people. Vice Admiral Robert Fitzroy demanded after the fact that a comprehensive warning service come into being, so that another tragedy could be avoided. This ended in a forecast for ships, first for telegraph and later for radio. The words that slip through my fingers are meant to save lives. They're supposed to warn against storms. When my father had a stroke, it happened without warning. He had a sore head and a storm hit. I remember sitting in the kitchen with him, head in his hands. The radio was playing in the background, chatter of the day, coming and going. I hoped it was instead the shipping forecast. I hoped it was that roll of words and numbers charting the coast of some imaginary Britain. That would be a comfort. If the shipping forecast came on at that time, in the middle of the morning with the sun shining through the window, maybe there would be some rules I could follow. Between Dogger and Viking, maybe there was something I could glean. Some information in those words to stop him making that face, stop him being in so much pain. One of the outcomes of my father's stroke was that he remains unable to read sentences. He can read individual words, and he can read mathematical equations, but putting these together into sentences is hard, if not impossible. It is strange the way the brain works. As a physicist, this is probably the best way possible to sustain brain damage. He can work relatively unaffected, building numbers without any trouble in the slightest. If he looks at a novel, though, it is a different story. He can grip individual words, maybe hold a handful of them at the same time, but move over sentences and they fall out of his hands. They slip between his fingers. For him, a book is a game without rules, or more accurately, rules that are always just out of reach. And so I feel closer to him when I listen to the shipping forecast, trying to follow, failing and trying again. Low, 200 miles south of Iceland, 960, drifting east and filling. Low, 250 miles northeast of the Faroes, 956, moving steadily north and deepening. 940 by 88 Sunday.